This is the J. Scott Outdoors podcast on Western big game hunting and fishing, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today. I'm your host, Jay Scott, and I live and breathe hunting and fishing, spending half the year in the field experiencing God's creation. I hope you'll enjoy hearing about our adventures. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. We're fortunate today to have three guys that are desert sheep fanatics. We've got Eric Hunt and Troy and Travis Scott, Arizona Desert Outfitters. These guys are some of the best in the business. They have an incredible passion for the desert, and they have an incredible passion for the desert sheep that live in the western deserts. And these guys have guided for many incredible trophies and are known around the Southwest as being some of the best desert bighorn sheep guides around. And I'm fortunate to call all three of these guys my friends. We have guided many times in the same units, and we have known each other for years, and I'm just happy to have them on. I look forward to hearing what they have to say, as I know you listeners will. And guys, how you doing? Happy to have you on today.
Doing good, Jay. Glad to be on here.
That's awesome. What I'd like to do is kind of start out and have each one of you just kind of tell a little bit about how you got your start in hunting, and a little bit how the passion of hunting started. Why don't I start out there with you, Troy, and you start me off on a little history and background, and then maybe I'll have Travis, and then Eric, you can weigh in.
Okay. Well, first off, I was born in the La Paz County. At the time, it was Yuma County. I grew up on the Colorado River hunting and fishing. And during my early years, my brother and I, we used to do a lot of duck and goose hunting down in Cibola and all throughout the Colorado River. And our passion for fishing was basically bass and flathead catfish. And toward our later years, we really got into flathead catfishing, and we used to let them go if they were under 40 pounds. And we were down in Cibola Lake, I don't know, it's about 15, 20 years ago. Travis and I caught a 62-pound flathead. And then as time went on, we started getting more into big game hunting. And living right in the heart of desert bighorn sheep country, we just kind of took that on. And at some point, Travis and I decided that, hey, we love this so much, we might as well just go ahead and, see if we can start taking some clients out, and that's kind of where it went from there.
That's awesome, Troy. I've got to ask you, that's just too intriguing of a intro there. When you're fishing for those catfish, is it primarily at night, or were you guys fishing during the day, or how are you doing that?
For the flathead catfish, we predominantly fished at night. We would use a live bluegill or a goldfish or a carp minnow. And, we would be out all night long from about sundown till the sun came up. And we'd be lucky if we caught one or two flatheads in a night. But
would you be drifting and fishing for those, or would you be fishing from the bank or from a boat, or how would you be mainly fishing for those?
Primarily, we'd be fishing from the bank, and a few times we did go in the boat. We had a pontoon boat, and we were able to get into some of the areas where there'd be a lot of logs and rocks and everything. Rather than reeling them into the logs and rocks, we were able to reel them away from everything. So,
sure.
But I would say about 75% of it was from the bank.
Okay. And is the fishing for catfish as good as it used to be, or is it nowhere near what the quality of fishing was now on the Colorado River?
That's a good question, because I really think that it's better today because nobody's doing it. Back when I was a kid and Travis and I were running around, there was about a dozen people that were consistently flathead catfishing. And, you know, as competitive as everything is, we were always set out to catch the biggest ones and find the, you know, the best holes and everything. And today, there's those old guys they're gone. They died, moved, and today I think if I was to really get serious and start trying to flathead catfish again, I believe that we would have no problem catching a good stringer full of 45, 50-pound flatheads in a night.
That's awesome. One of these days, I've never done it. I'd like to come down there and just go with you, and maybe it'd be fun just to do it if you hadn't done it in a while. Sounds like a hoot. I'm sure they fight really good. Travis, why don't you give me a little bit of a background on your passion for hunting, and I'm sure it's parallels Troy's, but give me your take on your history of hunting.
Well, you know, Jay, the fishing does have a lot to do with it, and it does draw a very similar parallel as to the fact that we were always trying to outdo the other people that were out there fishing the river. If somebody caught a 52, we wanted to catch a 53. You know, we wanted, if they caught 6 40-pounders in a night, we're going to catch 7 50s in a night. Although that never happened, but we started doing that back when Troy and I loaded together on a 200S 3-wheeler and headed down to the A1 backwater south of Ehrenberg. We didn't take any food with us, but we took some chicken liver to catch some channel cat in case we didn't catch any flathead. Well, the label on top of the chicken liver said not for human consumption. We got cold and hungry, and we used that label because that's the only paper we had to light a fire to cook the chicken liver. And me and Troy had a feast of a lifetime.
I'm sure you did. That's a funny story. That's fantastic.
Using that, going into what we did, you know, when I was 3 years old, my mom killed her ram, and then when I was 11 years old, Troy killed his. We kind of always found ourselves looking at sheep, looking for sheep, and one way or the other being on a sheep hunt through our young, pre-adolescent years into our adolescent years. And, you know, growing up in the town we did, hunting was always big. There was always talk about somebody killing a big buck or somebody seeing a big ram. And it's not that we wanted to be better than them on that. I mean, we did want to go out there and catch bigger catfish or, you know, get more geese, have a bigger decoy spread or whatever. We just really loved to be out here in this desert. And going out there, loving the scenery of the desert. And then growing up, my dad having the books by Jack O'Connor, having Borrego by the Arizona Desert Sheep Society. You know, him always talking about Pete Similero, Jim McCaslin, Mike Mell. These guys that were real sheep legends that were still alive, not to mention Jack Walters. You know, it just really fueled a fire when we got the means that we could do what we wanted to do. It fueled a fire for us not only to make our dad proud, but to make us go out there and see what it was like. And, you know, Jay, we didn't know how much we were missing until we got into it. And you know, even though I've been guiding for 20 years, every year that I got a sheep hunt, I have the confidence and everything after so many years of doing it, but every sheep hunt, in a lot of ways, I have the butterflies as the very first sheep hunt I've ever done.
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think that the day that we don't have those, I think is the day that we probably quit or that we've probably died, and I think that's, what makes us passionate about what we do, and it's interesting that you bring up, some of the old timers and some of the, I'm a big Arizona history buff. I love our state. I love the desert. Personally, people say, well, wouldn't you want to live here? Or wouldn't you want to live there? And I always tell people, my home, my heart's in Arizona. I don't ever see myself having to leave Arizona. And if I do, it'll be a sad day. And it probably will be against my will.
Hear on that. Hear on that.
I think, until you've witnessed those monsoons come across the desert and smell those smells after a big rain and smell the desert when it comes alive. I mean, I don't think you've lived until you smell that. And I think for me personally, and I know you guys can attest to this, I mean, there's nothing like, in my mind, there is nothing like the Arizona desert. I really don't care what anybody says with the Ocotillo and the Palo Verde and all of our diverse terrain. It's just there's something about the Arizona desert. Happy to have Travis and Troy on this podcast. And Eric, why don't you tell me a little bit about your background in hunting and your passion for hunting and how it got started?
Jay, mine was about the same with Troy and Travis. As far as I was fortunate to be, born and raised in the desert right here in Wickenburg, Arizona. A lot of great deer hunting and now some pretty good sheep hunting, right out our front door. And at a young age, my dad and my uncles, they took me everywhere they went, and it gave me the drive to, get good grades, stay out of trouble. That way I could go on those hunts with them, starting out deer hunting and everything. And I got hooked. Along came, I tried to read every magazine article I could, getting tips, watching every hunting video. And it just grew from there to where, we started hunting big game, Arizona, New Mexico. And it just grew, and my intro to my sheep was in 2007. I was fortunate to win the big game super raffle tag. Uh-huh. And when I won that, I had never hunted sheep before. And I went up, I hunted with a good friend of mine now, Gino Wilcotti. We went up and I killed a beautiful 9-year-old ram up on the Arizona Strip. And right away, I got the bug. After that, 2 years later, I was fortunate enough to go on another sheep hunt from a raffle. My mom had won the raffle-rama at the Sheep Society fundraiser, and she wasn't able to go, so she gave the tag to me. So, I went up on that hunt up there in Alberta, ended up killing my ram on the 21st day of a 21-day season. And I tell you what, after that hunt, that's probably the highlight of my hunting career, going in on horseback 12 miles into the wilderness, having a camp set up, bear wire around the camp. We rode in, it was probably 60, 70 degrees, leaves changing colors. And I remember talking to my buddy Jim, who was on the hunt, saying, man, it's kind of warm. Hopefully it cools down a little bit. Well, a week later, storms had moved in and we had almost 3 feet of snow in camp, dropped down to probably negative 15. And I mean, just hunting conditions just got really tough. We weren't seeing the rams, but we ended up sticking it out. We got charged by a grizzly. It was just an incredible hunt. And after that hunt, I was totally sold on the sheep hunting. In 2010 is when I first teamed up with Travis and Troy and did my first guided hunt. And my experience on that hunt, hunting with Daryl Krantz, was just incredible. So that's really how I got my start, Jay.
Yeah, I remember in 2010 I was actually down in the Plomosas in 44B North, and I ran into Travis or Troy, I don't remember which one, but before the season, and they had told me that you guys had found a big ram over there, and then when I got to see the photos of that ram, man, what a beauty that was, and just an incredible ram. I think that ram, you guys will have to correct me, but I think it was 183 inches or something like that, maybe more.
Yeah, he ended up,
just
about 183 net, and I mean,
that's
what
just
a way
an
to
incredible.
What a way to start your guiding career, on a ram like that. I'll probably never beat it, but it was. Hunting with Daryl was great. That type of a unit was known for, 150-inch rams, so we were realistic with him when we told him, look, this might be the biggest ram we can find. But we had trail cam pictures of some better rams, and we had looked for them since August. We got a friend of Troy's gave him a tip, and I think it was 2 days before the season, we finally found him after looking for him for months. And anyways, Daryl was just couldn't have happened to a better guy. We sat on the ram till opening morning. We made a perfect stock, got it on video. He made a hell of a shot, and let's just say, we were surprised at how big that ram was.
He's a gorgeous ram, and that's quite a feat. Not taking anything away from the Western deserts at all, but typically the rams of that caliber don't come out of the Western deserts, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So a ram like that is unbelievable. And what was it like when you knew the ram was there? You guys talk a little bit about knowing that the ram is there and having a client in the unit and looking all summer and not finding the ram. And at times, I mean, I've been there too. You feel stupid. You feel like, how can I not find this animal? You feel like your mind's playing tricks on you at times, and you think he's not here. And then you go back and look at the picture and you say he is here.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about how the dynamics of that feeling works, and maybe kind of what tips you would give to stay in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, mentally that's a tough part, because a lot of the trail cam pictures we get are during the summer, and that's typically when the sheep are beginning to rut. So there's no telling if that ram stays there year round or if he moves off once November, December comes around. So it's challenging, especially in that unit when you've got a really low population of sheep in an extremely large unit, a lot of country to cover. So you look and look and look, and sometimes, you share those pictures with your client, but you just have to let them know that, hey, he was here now, but with these rams as nomadic as they are, in a couple months, he might pick up and move 20 miles.
Sure.
So like, for us, just saying to, someone that's new to hunting sheep, don't concentrate just right where you had those pictures, right where you saw a ram. If you're not finding that ram in that spot, try to venture out and cover more country.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great tip. I always say, the worst place to look for a giant ram is the last place you saw him. I mean, but logic will tell you that you've got to go look where you last saw them. But most of the time, you're better off going, on the perimeter, and because they often go back to the same spot twice, often.
Yep.
But it seems like they cycle and sometimes have no rhyme or reason. Travis and Troy, can you chime in a little bit on the fact of how nomadic our desert bighorn sheep are, and give me a little of your insight on that subject?
Jay, that's a very interesting point. I can't say personally that I've chased a ram over 100 miles by any means, but we did have a ram on trail camera back in 2012. And 2012. Eric will remember this ram, the ram we called RL.
Yep.
And in a matter of 3 days, I think it was, the ram traveled 16 miles to a total different water hole for no apparent reason. The ram had lived there for 2 years, and then he just decided to go on a walkabout. It wasn't that we had rain. It wasn't that there were no sheep up there. It was just that ram had a wandering bone. And then over in California, Richard Colby was telling us about a ram that they collared, and that ram stayed pretty much on that mountain for a month. And in 3 days' time, that ram traveled 57 miles just to go where he wanted to be. So, you know, you obviously start the last place you saw him, and then from there, you just go look for sheep. And you just
where you haven't looked.
Look where you haven't looked. Every day that you go out there and you don't find him, that tells you where he's not.
Correct.
And then you keep moving forward from there.
Well, and two, don't you agree that, you know, every day that you don't find them, you're closer to finding them? And I think if you can take that mindset of, you know, you're getting your, you know, butt handed to you day after day, you're just one step closer to turning him up.
You know, Jay, that is exactly it right there. You can't get the defeated attitude. And I try to tell, you know, most prospective sheep hunters that are getting very frustrated on everything while they're out there scouting, you know, don't look at it as you're losing. Look at it as you were winning, and take the knowledge that you're gaining each day that you don't find him and then narrowing in where he might be. But there's also the case of 2012 when we had a great big ram in 44B North. Eric will know this story, and the ram was named Grande. We had him 2 different years on one water hole, and this ram would have truly been a legend. Nobody ever saw that ram with their naked eye or their own natural eye. All we had was trail cam pics, and we flipped every rock over looking for this ram. We couldn't find him. We felt like we were chasing a ghost, and the ram just disappeared. So you have to be realistic also, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, at a certain point, you can be chasing your tail, and I think when you have pictures in the summer of a ram, you have to assume that the ram is there. And I'm pretty sure that ram you're talking about in 2012 is the ram you and Troy showed me this December. Yes. When I was over there.
Yes.
You know, at some point when you haven't gotten photos on any of your cameras and had no sightings for a couple of years, you know, while you're still looking for that ram, you know, at some point you have to know that they've probably run their course and that they may not be alive, and that if you do find them, that, you know, you're just, you know, you've gotten good fortune that day to you know, to run across them. That leads me into a perfect question. A ram that you guys killed this year in 44B North was a ram that I had pictures of in 2010 and had seen several times when I was in there, and just a beautiful ram. And I know you guys have an unbelievable history with this ram. A little side note to the story, you guys had a hunter in 44B North this year, and I was fortunate to have Avery Elms, 12-year-old Avery Elms from Baker City, Oregon in there. And when her dad called and booked the hunt, I was really excited because I knew that ram was in there. And when her dad said that she had school till the 19th of December, I was a little bit heartbroken knowing that the other hunter was going to have a chance at that ram before we did, at that time not knowing that you guys had the other hunter. You guys got the other hunter and did a fantastic job of getting that ram harvested. But walk me through, guys, a little bit of the journey of the ram. We knew him as Lefty. I believe you guys knew him as Shaq or have other names. Tell me a little bit about the history of that ram.
You know, I think it's best that Troy and Eric start about the beginning history of him, and then we'll all share our own stories. Troy, I think, should go first about him.
Yeah. Jay, I first discovered that ram in 2012, and it was kind of by accident. I was looking, when I had pulled my cameras and my cards and everything, I was pretty well focused on the RL ram and the Grande ram, and we had a couple of other third and fourth place rams in that unit. And I was up at Mormon Lake with Eric on the bow hunter happening, and we had rented a cabin, and that morning I was sitting there at the kitchen table, and I was just going back through all my trail camera pics, just kind of summarizing to make sure I haven't missed any particular ram standing out. And I happened to notice some pictures of this ram back in the far right-hand corner of my camera. And anyway, I started looking at them more and more and more, and I brought it to Eric's attention, and I said, hey, look at this ram right here. This ram's really something special. And so when I got home, of course, I notified Travis about it, and, you know, and we were pretty well focused on Grande and RL, and we really didn't, you know, have him high on our priority list. But in 2013, I picked the ram up again on the trail camera, and by this time RL had been harvested, and we couldn't find Grande, and we started looking into Rocky a little more, or Shaq, or as you call Lefty. And anyway, going into that season, we didn't have a hunter. We were crossing our fingers. We tried to keep it as quiet as we could. And, you know, after the season ended, we were high-fiving one another that he didn't get harvested.
Yeah, I have to say I never wish anybody ill will, but I definitely was happy to know that he made it through. Just a gorgeous ram.
Yeah.
So that was the 2013 season, and then obviously here comes the 2014 draw, and why don't you take it over from there?
Yeah, well, you know, obviously by the summer of 2014, that was the ram that we were looking for, and I picked him up on a couple of different water holes, and one trip, Travis and I were going in to check the cameras, and we happened to notice the ram up on the skyline. And of course, we didn't know it was him at the moment, but anyway, we got the video camera out. We started videoing him, and by the time we got done videoing him and heading home, we realized that you know, that was Rocky. And once we knew that we had Rocky, I went back, I looked at my video camera, and I asked Travis coming home that afternoon, when we got done filming him. I said, Travis, did that ram have a chip on the right horn? Yeah. He goes, I said, did he have this on the left horn? And he goes, yeah. And I go, okay, I think I got that ram pegged. I think I'm going to have to go home and look at my trail cam pics. And so I took my video and, you know, put the pictures on pause, and I compared them with the trail cam pics, and it was really exciting to find out that we actually got an actual eyeball on this ram, and we were within 80 yards of him taking video, and this is the ram that, you know, we initially found back in 2012, and then as the draws came out, you know, we learned that Vince Smith had drawn the tag, and it couldn't have been any better because we had been, talking with Vince, told him to put in 44B North, and from there on, once we found out that he had the tag, it was on like Donkey Kong. And
that's awesome. Tell me about the excitement level as far as going into the hunt and the pressures of staying on the ram. And from that time when you saw him in the summer, how many times did you see him, and how elusive was he, guys?
I'm gonna go ahead and pass this on over to Travis. He's literally jumping up and down in the seat, so I'm gonna let him go with that.
Okay.
Jay, it started with the very first time that I saw him in person. Of course, we saw trail cam pics, and we had him named as Rocky forever. The trip that Troy's talking about, where we were driving into the Guzzler and to check our camera, I looked up and I saw this ram, and I said, Troy, that's a big ram. But there was a smaller ram. All you could see was just a little bit of his face, but there was a smaller ram being Skyline. And Troy said, no, that's not a big ram. And I said, well, look at the ram to the left. He curls way up above his eyes. He tips out. And it's everything you look for. Oh, yeah, look at that ram. And I remember thinking that I really made a buffoon out of myself, saying, I think that's a 180 ram. Because I can be kind of quick to say something that I don't mean sometimes. I think we all know that. But, when we went in there and started scouting, gosh, we were looking for the lost Dutchmans after that. We never saw him. Never saw him. Vince Smith went in there, though, when we thought we found him once in September. And we were up there, me, Troy, and Eric, were up there on the raffle hunt, and we got a picture from Vince that said, I think I found him. And there were 4 angles, and there was no doubt that Vince found him. And the excitement level went from, I don't know where he is, which is a -1, to a +10 in a matter of, well, I guess airtime seconds. And
sure.
We knew that it was game on once again. But then once the hunt started over again. Everything about that ram was totally 110% a hunt.
Sure. And then Travis, so when Vince found him, then he went MIA again, I believe, and I'm sure I was up with Dara in 15D, but I'm sure you guys were, I know how it is when you're trying to get it done. It's crazy how those rams can just disappear even when they have very, very experienced eyes, all over them. Tell me a little bit about the discomfort that you felt, that we all feel at times, and how you just went about your business of trying to turn him up.
Well, Jay, we knew that we had serious competition in that unit, and you and I both know what I'm talking about. Our biggest concern was finding that ram. It wasn't, well, we have to beat the competition or anything, but we didn't. Me and you talked on the phone about that ram. We didn't want you to have that ram in your backpack. We wanted to have that ram, and you.
If I remember, yeah, exactly. If I want to quote the words exactly, I think the last time you talked. Now, one of the fun things to look back now, we can all laugh about it. At the time, maybe it wasn't all that funny, but Travis and I had a conversation with each other, and I distinctly remember him saying, see, I wasn't trying to lead on that my hunter couldn't make it to the 19th. What I thought was that obviously by trying to get my client the best ram that I could, that if I played the cards that we weren't going to show up till the 19th of December, that it would basically just allow you guys a complete free roll in there.
Right.
And I remember going back and forth with you a little bit, and I remember you saying, Jay, I hope the last time you see that ram is in the back of my pickup truck.
That's exactly right, Jay.
I remember laughing and thinking, oh man, this ram's in trouble.
Yes.
Tell me about, Travis, the moment that the ram was found, I believe was on the second day, and tell me about the exhilaration. Tell me about the feeling when you put your eyes on him and you knew it was him, and the anticipation and all of that. And then walk me through, the ram and what it ended up scoring and all of that.
Well, Jay, I wish I could tell you that I sat back at 3 miles and glassed a great big ram up, and he was the one, and we knew it, and everybody was there. It was completely the opposite. Yeah. Me and Randy Johnson from Utah, great guy. We just got done in 44B South. We decided to hit one spot in 44B North that I thought could hold that ram. We looked everywhere else. The ram was gone. But where hadn't we looked? And, I woke up that morning ready to go, and then realized that I was out of Copenhagen. So we had to drive all the way to Zip Truck Stop, and then drive all the way back out there. And we went and parked, and we looked.
But real fast with that, I have to interrupt. So I'm going to mark down here on necessity for gear. Copenhagen is at the top of your list in order to have a successful sheep hunt.
Well,
right?
It's in order to have a very pleasant sheep hunt.
Okay, I got you.
Yes, but we went and we looked at a couple of rams, and Randy was about 20 yards away from me, and I said, well, I'm going to walk over the next ridge. And when I walked over, I saw with my naked eye, I saw him. And there was no doubt in my mind that it was him with my naked eye. I threw the tins up. It was him. And I waved Randy up, and he said, well, let's make sure and get everybody here. And I said, hang on before we cause alarms. Why don't we get the big eye on him? And there was no doubt once we saw him. And then, Jay, once all the communication started that we had him, it just, man, it really got messed up after that. There was, I guess, text going back and forth that it's not him, that it's a false alarm and everything. And I'm sitting up there on the hill with a dead phone and no radio. And I'm looking at this ram going, and I'm looking down 2 miles away, and I can see everybody having a sandwich. And I'm going, why are you having a sandwich when you got this ram standing here?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brooks and I were driving back
time of watching him.
What was that, Eric? You were
just saying Brooks and I were driving back from 44A West, and we got the text from Troy saying we found Rocky, and right then we were close. I mean, we were right there at the Plomosas, and I told Brooks, hey man, they've got Rocky. Let's start heading that way. So we start heading that way, and about 15 minutes later, we get a text saying it's not him. It's not Rocky. So we're like, oh, okay. So then we turn back around, start heading back to Wickenburg. About 20-30 minutes goes by, and Troy sends another text. Wait, it's all messed up. It's him. We're going to kill him.
Yeah. And Jay, I'm sitting there on the side of the mountain not knowing that any of this is going on. I have no communication. I'm trying to give Randy hand signals from 2 miles away. Vince overshoots Randy where he was supposed to meet him, drives by Randy, takes off running. I'm looking with my 10s at him. 15s are on a Rocky, or no, not the 15s. The 20s are on Rocky, and I see Randy just elbows in the air chasing 3 quads down the road. And I'm going, what is everybody doing here?
Yeah, the funny thing about that was I was with the hunter that killed a ram the day before, Jack Chastain in 44B South, and I had gotten a phone call from Travis, says, "We've got Rocky, head on over." So Jack and I started headed over to where they're at, and in that meantime I had called Eric and said, "We've got Rocky." And then all of a sudden I get a text from Vince, and it said, "It's not him." So I looked over at Jack and I said, "Well, we'll just go into quartzsite and let's go get a taco over there at Taco Mio." And then so we're on the highway, we're headed to Taco Mio, and Randy Johnson called me and said, "Hey, has anybody gotten a hold of Vince? Where's everybody at?" And I said, "Well, I just got a text from Vince, and he said that it's not him." And Randy said, "The hell it's not him. Travis is 300 yards away from him, sitting up there babysitting him." And I said, "Oh my gosh, man, this thing is falling apart faster than you can imagine." But nonetheless, we all just trusted the word that Travis still had him, and we went over there, and after that, the rest is history. It was kind of an emotional deal when I finally got over to the ram.
This is where the story's the best, Jay.
And I had so much history with that ram, and I had, basically been obsessed over him, that when I come walking up, I'd already been thinking about it walking up to the ram, that I actually
it's okay to say it.
I actually cried, and I had to take my glasses off and put my head down and wipe quite a few tears away, from my eyes. Because it was just the fact that, we had worked so hard for this ram. I was so appreciative, for what God gave us. And it was an emotional moment for me, you know how
That's awesome.
You kind of cry
Absolutely.
when you're happy, but
Absolutely,
at the same time you're kind of sad,
fantastic.
because it was over with that ram, and it was, and what was really cool about it is everybody stepped back and they let me have my moment with him, and and I really, that was probably one of the best moments of my whole deal on the hunt, is everybody just kind of stepped back and just let me have my moment of silence with Rocky, and look at him and hold his horns and everything, because that's how much that ram meant to me.
That's an awesome story. There's no doubt, knowing you guys as well as I do, the passion runs deep, and, quite honestly, if you didn't have those moments, you wouldn't be as good as you are. So,
Thank you.
That's what fuels the passion, and that's what makes all three of you guys, the guides and the outfitters and the hunters that you are. What did Rocky end up scoring? I know you guys have had him officially scored, and I believe he blows the unit record out of the water.
I think he's gross 183 and 6 or 5.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just an incredible ram. I still haven't seen the horns in person. One of these days I'll have to get together with you guys and go see him at Vince's.
Well, I know the guy who
I'm sure
to be getting a set of replicas, Jay, so I'm sure that you get to see them.
We can have a replica viewing party or lunch there, and
I'll make sure that they're
great.
sitting in the back of my truck.
Yes, I was going to say, you've got to live up to your our conversation for sure.
I'm having Steve Stainer make a set of replicas, and Travis, myself, and Eric, we've all gone in to have 3 sets of replicas made. So
awesome.
Here, probably in a couple of weeks, they'll be completed. and I'll definitely get a hold of you, and you can take a look at those up close.
Hey,
That's awesome.
Hey, Jay, I don't mean to make this go on any longer, but I do want to say something on that ram. You know, my real brother, Troy obviously is his blood, but my hunting brother, Eric, he had the chance to be on that hunt, and he chose to go do, or I guess he had to go do another hunt, and he knew that we were going to be hunting Rocky, and he unselfishly said, you guys go hunt Rocky, and I'm going to go to 44A West and get it done. But, somewhere inside, I really, really, truly wanted Eric there with us, Eric was a part of that ram, and I really wish that he could have been there when everything happened. I mean, I really do. It almost felt like somebody was missing during the entire thing.
Sure.
Eric showed up later on that night, but it really felt like that Eric was missing through the whole thing.
Well, that's cool that you guys have that bond that you do, which leads me into my next series of questions. You guys actually had, not just with Rocky, but you had a really good year in 2014 guiding. Can you guys give me a little rundown? Maybe, Eric, you run with this on the other rams. I know Travis and Troy, that the ram in 44B South, I believe, was 177 or 8 inches. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Just a beautiful, big, nasty, beautiful ram. And Eric, you had quite a bit of success over there in 42 and 44.
Yep.
Fill me in on your 2014 successes.
Well, we've been scouting these units. We scout year round, so we develop a lot, like a relationship with these sheep. We see them a lot, and they mean a lot to us. And this was the year that we were actually able to book the hunters in the units we wanted, so we had a chance to hunt those rams. Our first hunt, we were able to book the super raffle hunter this year, and that was Jim Ford. We planned on hunting sometime October, and ended up being in November. So our plan was to get up and hunt, 15D, north-south, 16A. And so what we did is we kind of built a big team, and we had 2 camps set up. Travis and Troy and Brooks at times were down in 16A, and I was up with the rest of the guys scouting 15D and 15D North. And one of the things Jim Ford wanted on the hunt, he didn't want to get a phone call and say, hey, we found a big ram. He wanted the actual experience, which, we try to give all of our clients, because it might just happen one time in their lifetime. So, Jim came up, he brought his dad and he brought his best friend, which I thought was cool. Just had a great time. We looked over a ton of rams. I mean, both camps were finding a lot of rams. We were communicating back and forth. We took Jim on some pretty long wilderness hikes. I believe one day we covered about 15 to 16 miles in 15D South, and just a great day. He hung in there great. We were able to find 2 of the rams we were looking for, and almost pulled the trigger on one. It was a ram we called Wingnut, and old ram. We figured 10, 11 plus years old, but he was cool. I mean, we figured tip to tip he was about 30 inches, and we were above him. We watched him for probably an hour and a half. We talked back and forth. And we just decided, hey, let's just walk away. He's going to be here. Great choice on that. We ended up hunting a full week. I think we looked at, and Travis and Troy might correct me, we probably looked at close to 75 to 100 rams in that time. Does that sound accurate, guys? Yeah, a ton. I mean, Jay, up there, you're just going to see a ton of rams, but finding a big ram is tough. Our goal was a Boone and Crockett ram, but we know, in years back, that's tough to do. We ended up, the day before Jim killed, it was in the evening, we got into an area and we just found a ton of rams. I think we saw over 30 rams that night, and I believe there was one herd with over 20 rams in it, and a few of them looked big. So the last day we moved everybody up there. We went in there and looked, and ended up finding Jim's ram. You know, there was another ram in there that was big, and then all of a sudden Jim's ram walked by, and I think Travis and Troy saw him walk side by side, and that's big when you're judging sheep, because I mean, you can look at a ram and say, yeah, that's a nice ram, but when he steps next to another one and you can really compare, that really helps make your decision. Anyways, big looking ram. We knew he was heavy, long on the right side. He had broomed, nice, you know, cape on him, old white faced, and Jim loved him.
The rings around his eyes.
Yeah, the white rings around his eyes. I mean, he's just a beautiful ram. So we sat back. Troy said a little prayer, which is cool, before we made the stock, and Brooks, Jim, and I went in. And as we were stalking up the canyon, we bumped another ram that was down in the bottom. And of course, you know, he's got a million different ways he can go. He ends up going right at the other sheep. So we're like, you know, we better kind of start to move. And as we're getting up to the rock we want to shoot at, Travis is on the radio saying, hey, guys, he's getting nervous. You need to make it happen fast. And so we got up there, really intense, 15 seconds, and Jim made a great shot, tipped the ram over. Just a beautiful ram. Ended up 9 years old. I think Game and Fish scored him at 172 gross, 170 and a half net. I think he had 15 and a half inch bases. Just a beautiful ram.
Yeah, you know, Eric, that's a great story. I can attest to 15D north and south, having Dar and I fortunate to guide the raffle hunter the 3 years prior to when you guys guided it. One of the things that's just so fun about that raffle hunt is the fact that you basically have all of that country to yourself, and you can look over a lot of sheep, and you don't have to worry about, you know, if you find a ram that you want to harvest, you really don't have to worry about anybody else, you know, boogering the ram or anything. And you know, the Arizona Super Big Game Raffle sheep hunt has generated quite a bit of money in the last couple of years, and all of that money goes to our Desert Bighorn Sheep as well as the auction tag. You know, having guided it and listening to your story of guiding it, I'm glad you guys got a nice, beautiful big ram, and congratulations to you guys. And I'm glad you guys were able to enjoy a raffle hunt and get to experience some of those Nelson. I know most of your experience has been with the Mexicanas. A quick question for all three of you. In Eric, you obviously shot your raffle ram in 2007, which was
Yep.
Nelsonite, because that's pretty much what you have to hunt on that hunt. There are a few Mexicanas in 16A. What are you guys' impressions of the differences between Nelsonite sheep and Mexicanas as far as, you know, one of the things Dar and I always notice, seems like the Nelsons are always up on the high peaks, always up in the rocks, where a lot of times the Mexicanas are down on the transition, down on the desert floor. Tell me what you guys thought about the Nelson Eye and maybe some of the similarities and some of the differences.
You know, one thing on that, Jay, is you're right. I mean, we had a transition from hunting desert sheep, you know, in southwestern Arizona, where typically, you know, we start on, you know, the lower rollers or the lower half of the mountain when we're looking for those older rams. That's where they tend to be and want to go, that gentle country. When we moved up there, you know, you were right. I mean, we had to change that because most of the sheep we were finding were on the very top of that mountain. And so, yeah, definitely once we kind of figured that out, you know, it helped out quite a bit. We did notice, you know, on his ram body size seemed to be a little bit bigger than the rams down, at least a cape thicker. And as far as like judging, when those rams are wide flaring like that, it definitely, it's a different type of judging. You kind of have to adjust and try to figure out, from the angle, okay, he shoots way out, but does he curve up? That's kind of the things I noticed on the Nelson rams.
Yeah, I mean, Travis and Troy, I'll let you guys go next, but I mean, absolutely, Eric. I think when I started looking at Nelson sheep, one of the hardest things is when they're looking at you, they're flared out, and then they turn completely sideways. You're used to looking at a Mexicana and judging how far the bottom of that curl comes up and, tips up, either, trying to get up above its jawline or up above its nose. But very rarely do you get a Nelson eye that's going to actually curl and tip up. They usually kind of curl and tip out, and it can be very, very difficult to judge length, I think. Yep. And not only that, it kind of throws the mass off because your eye is kind of trained to catch those second and third quarters and be able to judge your mass down low, where when they tip out and when they're perfectly broadside, the horn is actually basically pointing out towards you, and it's really hard to get an idea of mass. Travis and Troy, can you weigh in on a little bit on that?
Pretty much everything that you said and Eric said, spot on.
Yeah.
To me, Nelsons are harder to judge than Mexicanas because you have more straighter profiles to look at. How far does he drop below the jaw? How far does he come up? Looking at the horn, a ram straight on, and then a profile view, just to kind of judge those second and third quarter measurements and even the bases and everything. So, I would have to say, if somebody said, I am an expert Nelson Desert Sheep judge, they better damn well be good, because as far as I'm concerned, they're the hardest to judge from, because most of their horns are going out away from their head, and it's hard to judge the mass, the length, and everything else. So exactly what Eric said and what you said, I can attest to that.
Absolutely, and Travis, not to cut you off, but there's a couple things I want to cover, and we're already getting pretty well into this episode. Eric, why don't you finish up? Just give me kind of the brief synopsis of how you guys finished up in 42 and 44, and then I kind of want to talk about the 2015 proposed regulations and numbers. So you guys had a phenomenal year last year. I believe you harvested 7 rams over 170 inches. But give me six rams. Give me a brief kind of description of them and the units and the scores and the hunters.
Okay. Basically, once our December hunt started, we had 6 more hunts to do, so we kind of broke it into 2 camps. Travis and Troy were going to do 44B North, 44B South. Brooks and I went to 44A West with Tom Shore, and then we were going to move after that to 42 and finish the next 2, while Troy and Travis went to 44A East with Dale. It was a lot, it was a lot on our plate, but everything worked out. Our first hunt with Tom Shore, 44A West, was great. I mean, we had some rams that we were looking for, spent weeks in there with hardly seeing any sheep. And I mean, the pressure was building on Tom, the pressure was building on us. We just couldn't find a ram that we were looking for. The day before the season, I was up with Tom on a point, and Brooks was out a couple miles from me. And it's one of those things where I was using the koas. I was looking a long ways, and I kept questioning, man, that looks like a sheep. And I told Tom, it looks like a sheep, but it's not moving. Well, it ended up being a ewe. I looked back there; it was about, I think, 4 miles, and there's a ram standing there. And I'm like, man, that looks like a good ram. Well, Brooks got closer, told me right away that he's a pig. The ram's a pig.
That's when we were talking on the radio 50 miles away.
Yep. Yeah, our Kenwood radios worked pretty well. They went from over by Parker to the Plomosas. That was pretty good. But anyways, what a relief, okay, we got a ram. Now it's just waiting. Okay, is he going to stay put? That's always a lot of pressure. So we watched him till that night, went in there the next morning, couldn't find him at first. I took Tom in there, got up to where we thought he was. He was across the canyon. Tom made a great couple of shots and about 426 yards and got his ram. And I tell you what, it's such an honor for us to hunt with these guys. It's their one chance. They waited so long, and they have kind of that pressure built up. And like for Tom, once he shot that ram and he knew he was down, he just started bawling. It's just so cool to be a part of something like that.
It really is, and I see it come out more in desert sheep hunting. It seems like with guys, because of it is truly a once in a lifetime hunt, and it does seem to bring the emotion out more on those animals for sure.
Yep.
And yeah, he was a beautiful ram that you guys had killed for sure.
Yep, and he ended up Game and Fish 175 gross, 173 and something net. Another great ram. From there, we got him down. I said I sent a text out, ram down. I get a text saying ram down, and I'm thinking, whoa, we got 2 rams down by 10 o'clock on opening day. So that was cool. Travis and Jack had shot a ram in 44B South, and then that next day they shot Rocky in the Plomosas. After that, on the 3rd, Troy and Travis and Randy and the crew, they went and helped Dale. Day 1, helped Dale in 44A East. I believe he killed a 160 ram. I mean, to kill a ram like that in 44A East, basically your goal is to kill a class 4 ram, 8, 9 years old or better. And they got it done. Pretty awesome. Then we moved camp. We were excited to hunt 42. 42 was the second year that it had been open, and still some good rams in there. We had Steve Quinn and Caitlin Farrington. Steve Quinn ended up killing a 172 ram, I believe, on I think the 4th or 5th day of hunting. We had looked at other rams and stuff like that. Some other things had happened. Killed a ram that we had never seen before. I mean, we never had trail cam pictures. We never had anything of him. And another friend of ours, Troy Farrington, had kept telling us of a ram he saw by himself, and he called him Limpy. And we just thought, maybe Troy had been drinking too many beers or what, because no one had ever seen this ram and this Limpy myth.
He had 4 horns,
yeah,
right?
He just called this. Of course, every ram Troy sees is a monster. This dude.
Not to be confused with Troy Scott.
Yeah,
I understand.
Troy Farrington. But anyways, love you, Troy. But anyways, like I said, he said there's this other ram, yada yada. Well, Brooks had found him, and we got Steve over there, and we looked at like we haven't seen this ram before, and sure as heck, there's a ram. Old ram, and he's limping. I mean, he can hardly get around. So we're like, holy cow, Troy was telling the truth. Went in there. Steve made a couple good shots, killed another old and great ram. And then our last hunt was Caitlin Farrington, and that was a special hunt for me because, the Farrington family I've been friends with for a long time, so they're like, like daughters to me. I kind of feel like, and so it was cool to be able to hunt with her. And I tell you what, just a great girl to hunt with. I mean, the whole time, never complained, did some long hikes. We were hunting a ram that we had called Oscar, and Oscar, we had thought that Dave Acosta had killed the year before until he showed back up this year. And we're like, wait a second, So we found Oscar. The first day we found him, he was in a good spot. He was alone, but he was a really cagey ram. We put a stock on him, and had him at 200 yards, but he knew something was up. He kept looking down our way. We were down behind a rock pile, looked at our way, looked towards us, and then he just kind of bolted, took off. Went about a mile, watched him all day. It was hot. Took Caitlin, made a big loop, and made a play on him that evening. Same thing, hiked way to the top of a huge mountain, really hot. Caitlin hung in there. And as soon as we got to where we were going to shoot, it was going to be about a 300-yard shot. The ram walked over the ridge out of sight. And so it was kind of a heartbreaker, like, oh, man, he's that close. So we backed out. She had to go to work for a couple days. We came back out, and this time it was perfect. It was just the way it was meant to be. Her mom was there. Her family was there. We had everybody there, and we found Oscar. Everybody got to sit back and watch. We went in there. He was with some ewes. We had some fog that morning, which helped us make the stalk to the base of the mountain, and the fog lifted. We closed the gap a little bit, and she made a 270-yard shot, one shot, and the ram was dead. And 174 gross, just another beautiful ram, and that was one of the highlights for me this sheep season.
And the new unit record.
Yeah, and the new unit record, yep.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So that's a great year of sheep hunting. I believe 7 rams total that were harvested. Just an awesome feat. And congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you guys about the proposed hunt recommendations that have been proposed by the Game and Fish Department. I believe at this point it goes to the commission for them to vote on this. I want to talk to you guys specifically about Region 4. They have added quite a few tags, in my opinion. It seems as though, I'm looking at it right now, with the addition of the tag in 44B South from 1 to 2, the addition of 2 tags in 44B North from 2 to 4. There are additions in, I believe, 45A of 2 permits, bumping it up to 3. An additional permit in 45B. They've obviously split the Cabeza Prieta into 46A, having 2 permits in an east and a west, and then 46B going from 7 tags total in the whole unit to making a east and a west, 4 tags in each, so now 8 total. Specifically, I want to ask you guys about 44B North and 44B South, and then with the tags in 42, they didn't change anything in 42, but they still have 2 permits in 42 and 44A in the portion south of Highway 60. What are your feelings with the additional tags? How will that affect the hunting quality and or the trophy quality in those units, in you guys' opinion?
Eric's the guy to talk to about that. Eric knows that place like the back of his hand.
Are you talking about 42, Jay?
Well, yeah, 42 and then 44B North, 44B South. Any one of you can jump in.
I can.
I, for one, am going to go on the record and say that I'm a little bit alarmed in the 44B North. I understand they flew their survey. I hate to see any time a doubling of any tags, quite honestly, in any species. I know that they've got a formula that they use of Class 3 and 4 rams, but what makes me nervous is the quality of hunt. I know 44B North, like you guys know 44B North, and there's just not a lot of country, and I feel like the 4 hunters are going to be all jammed on top of each other. So why don't we start with 44B North, and then we'll bounce to 44B South, and then to 42.
Yeah, I agree, Jay. 44B North is it's a special unit. and you're gonna, the key to 44B North is handling it with kid gloves. I know there's a lot of rams in there, but the one night that we all had dinner, you did say, "Hey guys, can you believe I didn't see a single sheep today?" So it doesn't mean that 44B North is just crawling with sheep everywhere you look, but it is easy, but at the same time, you can go a day or two and not see any sheep at all. But having 4 tags in there, how about let's go back to the days when it was 3 tags. That was a little more acceptable. There were still some great rams being killed, Boone and Crockett rams, but now that we brought it up to 4 tags, and if they're all going to be in there at one time, it is a small place. It's going to be people stacking up on top of one another, and my honest, humble opinion is because there's so much road access in there. If you can't walk more than a mile without crossing a road or whatever. Everyone, as the years progress, they're going to continue killing the best rams out of the unit. The rams are not going to go unnoticed, unseen, and unpursued. And so if this trend continues, I predict here in the next few years, 3-4 years or whatever it is it's going to be a unit to where the best ram that you're going to be able to find is a 5 or 6 year old ram. And having said that, is what I'm afraid of is we're going to have 4 tags for the next 2 or 3 years. Things are going to drop off dramatically. The quality of rams, not just size, but the age of rams is going to drop off. Where now we're going to drop it in 4 years, 5 years from now. It's only going to be 1 tag in the unit, so that way the unit can catch back up. Well, it's easier to take away than it is to give back. And what I'm saying is, in 3 years, we can take all of the class 3 and 4 rams out of there, where there's nothing left but class 1 and 2 rams, and it's going to take another, I don't know how many years, to where they can get another solid population of class 3 and class 4 rams in there. And I have known about this for several months. In fact, a half a year I've known about it, and I've talked with Dave Conrad and the wildlife biologist, the WMD, and I've given them my opinion and told them that if you guys are going to increase the tag based on the formula, at a minimum do it 3. If you're going to do it, if you're going to put 4 tags in there, then I think it would be best that you guys do a split season. But the way I'm seeing it right now is it's going to be 4 tags from December 1st to the 31st. And quite honestly, for the people out there that don't know, it's going to be I predict a big disappointment for them, because everybody knows how a sheep hunt is. Each camp's going to have at least a minimum of 10 to 15 people. And if you have 4 different hunters in there with 10 to 15 different people in there, let's say the first week of sheep season, you know how many people are going to be out there looking for sheep? And and I don't know. I can't even describe what and there's some bad words going into this one, but it's going to be a cluster MFer. And quite honestly, I'm really not looking forward to being in there next year or for the next couple of years. And
well, yeah, I mean, Troy, one thing I could think is possibly they'll have it at 4, and maybe hopefully they'll drop it back down to 2. Hopefully they don't leave it at 4 for too long. If they do leave it at 4, at least split the season. It's very rare that anybody sheep hunts for 30 days. It just doesn't happen that often. In a unit like that, I think it could be split into 2 seasons, a first and a second.
Yeah.
That doesn't eliminate the amount of rams that they're killing, but what it does do is allow the quality of hunt to still maintain, a higher level. And, I'm not claiming at all to know more than a wildlife biologist.
Right.
But I do hunts every year and go on sheep hunts every year, and I do know that quality of hunt and quality of experience is, in a lot of cases, way more important than the size of ram.
Right.
While I, like anybody else, love to photograph and video and guide and harvest, large rams, I think the part of the sheep hunt that maybe is going to be lost on this particular hunt is the fact that, you add 40 people out looking for sheep, it's basically just going to be an execution.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, there will be some conflicts, and I just think it's unfortunate. Travis, you got anything to say there?
Yeah, back in 2007 when Rick Corvin drew 44B North, his good friend Floyd Green said, "Are you kidding me? Why did you draw that?" We all know Floyd. And Rick said, Travis said that this is a good unit and there's some good rams. And nobody's looking at it. And, Jay, we both got to hunt it during a great time. This last year was a great time. To me, I think it goes on to, let's take what everybody else has done and let's not listen to what they have to say. Let's do our thing, but let them have their success, and let's provide opportunity and let's make money. And I'm sure I'm going to make people mad with that statement. But, that unit got good when they forgot about it. And I'm more than willing to just say, 44B North got great, phenomenal, when everybody forgot about it. And I think it's going to be another 10 years before, at least another 10 years before that unit's going to be what it used to be. But the one thing that I really can say, our unit record's going to hold for a while, I guess,
Yeah, I think that's safe for a long time. Guys, what about 45A, B, and C? I don't have any experience in there.
I love the Copas. I know them very well.
It looks like in A they jumped it from 1 to 3, and in B they jumped it from they added a tag from 1 to 2. Does that mean that the Kofas are back? Because judging from those,
they only have 2 resident lions in there, which at one time there were 14. That sheep herd went from 1,400 down to 310, 320. Now they're back up to around 1,000 animals. I think that you're going to see a lot of potential. I think you're going to see a lot of great rams coming out of 45A in the next couple years. If you remember right, what is it? The Rudd ram and D's ram were killed in 1 year in 1965. 186 and 184 were killed in 1 year. That is a herd that set Arizona on fire. That herd right there is what everybody transplanted rams from to make the 190s in New Mexico, to make the 185s in California, to make Aravaipa, to make Canyon Lake. The sheep all started right there in the Copas, man. I was glad to see them get their break. And you know, it's hard to go into the Copas and think that you're going to sit on a hill. If you go into Brass Cap, you know someone else has looked at it. But the last time somebody looked at it was 20 years ago, back when Mike Mell, Dean Bowden, Pete Similero, Jim McCaslin, all the way back to Jack Walters. That's what they used to hunt. And I'm glad to see it back. And
is it truly back in your opinion, Travis, or is it
it's not governed by Arizona Game and Fish. U.S. Fish and Wildlife does their own survey on that refuge. So if they say that they could have 3 tags, that's pretty much the only place that says, we don't care what your formula says. This is our formula. They're not worried about money. They don't care if anybody hunts there or not. If they say that there's 3, Arizona Game and Fish would have put 7 in there. It will be. That's the next up-and-coming unit. I really, truly believe that. It has all the genetic potential, and if you go and hunt the Plymouth, or if you go hunt the Copas, it's a different place, man. It is. There's plant life that is nowhere else. There are no cattle anywhere in there. The storms hit there. The rams have the chance to grow big. They really do. It's a special place to hunt.
That's awesome. Eric, tell me a little bit about 42 and 44A with the 2 tags. I know you guys harvested a couple of big rams, but it seems like there's pretty low sheep numbers there to have 2 permits still in there. Does that concern you at all?
Yeah, Jay, it does. And I'm going to throw this disclaimer out just because, we have a good working relationship with the wildlife managers and Dave Conrad. And they do a great job for our sheep herd. So it's hard for us to sit back and kind of throw stones at them. They have a job to do. They have a formula to follow. So we have to kind of understand that. We try to give our input as much as we can just because we spend so much time out there. We kind of we work a lot with them on giving them info on what we're seeing, surveys, how many collared ewes are we seeing, how many lambs are there, etc. That particular sheep herd has great genetics. Daryl Krantz's ram came out of that herd. John Hawkins, Dave Acosta, Caitlin Farrington, Steve Quinn. So it's produced 5 Boone and Crockett rams. And we were a big part of getting those units combined because they use that as a travel corridor from 44AE south to 42. They tend to move back and forth. And so what you would find is one year, you'd have 10, 11 rams on the 44 side, and then the very next year, you're not seeing any sheep at all. And so most of those sheep have kind of found home in the Bighorn Mountains, which it's not a very big place at all. So our main concern is after hunting it this last year, there's a possibility of 5 class 4 rams killed in there in the last 2 years.
Since the survey, right? Since
the survey that they did in 2013. So that's kind of what they go off. They go, okay, well, we saw 5 class 4 rams in 2013. Well, in the last 2 years, we know that 4 for sure, maybe 5 have been killed. So that's our concern with that. I mean, there's still some good up-and-coming rams. I mean, there's some good class 3 rams, 1 or 2. But really, as far as class 4 rams, that's what we tried to relay to those guys, saying, look, we don't know. We don't have any proof we have any more Class 4 rams.
Sure.
So yeah, it's definitely concerning. But then again, you know, we might be saying this, and you know, they're two very big units, and that's all the time. You know, that's the time when someone goes into another little mountain range and pulls, you know, a big ram that we've never seen before, and it happens. I mean, every year, every unit, rams show up that we never knew about, and we thought we had it covered. You know, for example, a ram we named Dracula, we had seen him in 2010, 11. In March of 2012. After that, he went missing. He was in 44. Well, what happened is he had moved 30 miles and ended up in 42. So, you know, that's just proof right there that those rams are so nomadic.
Sure. I think, guys, we've got to where we probably need to cut her off for today. We still have lots to cover. Maybe we'll have to do another one of these. And Eric, I'm glad you bring that up about the game and fish. Certainly in our discussion about this, you know, we're all passionate about it. We all love our Desert Bighorn. And quite honestly, I know all of us here like our Arizona Game and Fish Department. We know they've got a tough job. And, you know, what they do, we're not always going to agree with. I think we would all across the board agree that they do a pretty darn good job, and they've done a pretty darn good job over the years.
Yeah, totally.
And you know, but you know, is it fair for us to have our opinions? Absolutely. And is it okay that we disagree with them? Absolutely. I think you know, we would all agree that they have a tough job and that they do a phenomenal job compared to a lot of states around. They do a great job. But guys, it was great to have you guys on. I really appreciate all the insight, and it was fun. I had a great time with you guys, and wish you the best of success on your upcoming hunts and upcoming year. And congratulations on just phenomenal success last year. And I look forward to seeing each one of you wherever we shall meet next, and just want to thank you for coming on today.
All right, thank you, Jay.
Jay, thank you very much. You know, it really meant the world to us, so thank you.
Yeah,
right on.
Thank you, Jay.
Right on, guys. You have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you when I see you, and take care, okay?
All right, you too, brother.
All right, bye. Thanks for listening to the J. Scott Outdoors Western Big Game Hunting and Fishing Podcast, brought to you by GoHunt.com Insider. Research faster, hunt more. Go to GoHunt.com/insider and join today.